Hello everyone, this is Alexandre from Games. Today I am joined by Marguerite deCourcelle, also named as con artist. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. I'm truly excited to learn more about what you did in the past, how you did it, because for people who don't know, you've made a lot of Bitcoin puzzles, and these puzzles they're very hard. Some people they try to solve these puzzles for like 3 years, so it's no joke. So very curious to learn more about those and also what you're doing these days. You have a cool project with NFTs. So please tell us a bit about yourself, how you got into crypto, what's the deal with all these very hard Bitcoin puzzles?
I got into Bitcoin in 2013, 2014, and at the time I was a fine artist playing in creative tech. So I have a fine art degree as a back in my background, and I was a gallery curator for a couple of years prior to that. When I started getting into Bitcoin, I was a gamer also at the time, so I had some pretty nice GPUs, and we started mining. And we mined until it didn't make sense to mine anymore, which actually happened pretty quickly. And then we went down the rabbit hole of ordering the like Butterfly Labs ASICs that never showed up and things like that. Those mistakes. So, anyways, I started to try to understand what was Bitcoin, and then that question led to what is money essentially. And in that process, learned about the distributed networks, decentralization, cryptography. And so in learning all about all of those things, I naturally started to think about it in my artwork. And I was working on the first piece that I started to put a puzzle into was called Dark Wallet, and it featured Amir Takai and Cody Wilson at the time. And it's supposed to be a wallet that obfuscated Bitcoin transactions when it would go, like basically be a mixer of a sort. And so I was thinking, well, how can I hide on that note? How could I hide something in this painting that could be interesting? And when I realized as I was just doing little Easter eggs through it, that it actually could turn into a private key as a result. That the pattern I'm putting in could like equate to a private key if you figured out some sort of puzzle that was a part of the art piece. And that idea actually was so viral on Bitcoin Talk in 2014. I wasn't prepared for it. As an artist, I had never seen that sort of reception to something I had put out. And then the pushback, though, a bit was that from my art friends was that the art was not good enough on its own to get that merit. I had to hide money in it in order to get people engaged. But on that thought, it had me thinking like, wow, if you challenge people by hiding money into artwork, you could actually weave in really deep and challenging ideas that force them along the way. That one, they're learning about those ideas. Two, you can teach them about like blockchain technology by incorporating the next step. You have to learn this sort of knowledge to understand the next step. So these trails, that first one I did, it was ended up being a 30-page PDF result of the walkthrough, because it started with the art piece. You'd go out on the internet and then you would come back. It was essentially what is called an alternate reality game, an ARG, which is something that people will use, especially game companies, for marketing campaigns. So if you've ever heard I Love Bees, which was a big campaign that Halo did back in the day, I was so excited to do them because people came to me to collaborate, developers. We would have a team of 5 to 10 people on different projects. It would take 1 to 2 months to create one, and then it would have a life shelf of 2 to 3 months of people solving them. And like I said, they could be as dynamic as wandering all over the internet, finding things on a wiki that we hid, and we had to convince a moderator to have that there because that was always an argument. And then things like hosting servers where we had our own Minecraft server where everybody onboarded at the same time. There was just so many fun things we've done over the years, but it led to growing the idea into becoming like more and more game-like over the years until we launched Blockade Games at basically the end of 2017. And right away, we started shipping mini games that were experimenting with blockchain technology. We did something called Ledger of Zabo, which we bridged Coin Lightning Network with Ethereum smart contracts. So you could trigger a smart contract to execute by sending a Lightning transaction. But the reality was that there's just no one's really using the Lightning Network to play like that. And what I found is people with Bitcoin, they're really only accumulating Bitcoin to like hold it, because the end game for all these coins for a lot of people is either Ethereum or Bitcoin to hold the mass amount of their wealth in those, even though they dabble playfully in the other projects. as a developer, I realized, okay, if I'm gonna have game assets, what do I want them to be backed by? Because I want people to play with them. I guess I want to loop back real quick and say, what I found with the puzzle work though was that people would race to go through to solve them, and there was one either prizes seeded along the way to claim or one big prize at the end. And people got sad eventually because they didn't, while they were walking away with educational pieces, they didn't have anything really to like memorialize their experience in the same way that someone that won the bounty had. And so when non-fungible tokens happened, we started making puzzles with CryptoKitty prices, because we could have a lot more of them, we could be more playful. So with Blockade, the game, the main title we're working on right now, Neon District, the cyberpunk RPG, is designed in a way that players can, in the same way that when thinking about puzzle solving and that experience, that you walk through the game and you accumulate value through the gameplay, that basically your NFT works as a recording your experience and you specialize it. So anyways, we've taken a lot of that knowledge since 2014 and basically funneled it all into what we're doing with this application development.
My first thought when you talked about that you sometimes created puzzles with like up to 5 people, you must have chosen these guys very carefully so that they don't leak the secret.
Yeah. It's interesting how that happens, and a lot of them solved. So the one you were talking about, the one that took 3 years to solve, he was an engineer in a country that he couldn't disclose who he was because it's illegal for him to have cryptocurrency. At the time it was. I don't know if that's still the case. He ended up designing the next puzzle for me after that. And that was a big prize. So at the time when we put the money in, it was 5 Bitcoin in 2014, which by the time it was solved was the height of the bull market, Bitcoin bull market. I think at one point it hit $100,000 actually, so it wasn't the absolute height. It hit $100,000 prize, but then it came back down to 50, I think is when it was solved.
So I'm very excited learning about how you're putting gamification into crypto in general and using NFTs. I truly believe that, games and video games, they're touching something at the core of human beings that we need to play. We like entertainment, and same thing with puzzles. We're much better when we have fun and we have a goal, and so that's amazing. If that can bring more adoption, I'm all for it. So now what I would be curious about is your most recent project, right? You've brought NFTs, you've created a game. What is this game? What genre of game is it? How are the NFTs incorporated in the game? Can you actually play for free? Are the NFTs like an added bonus? How does it work?
So currently, we're rolling out Neon District. So Neon District is a cyberpunk RPG, like I said. It's turn-based. It's inspired by some games like Final Fantasy, like a classic Final Fantasy experience, or if you play Darkest Dungeon. What we've done with NFTs is we're really pushing the boundary of what is possible right now. Currently, you have what I call static NFTs in the space that a lot of people use. And you can think of this as, let's say I mint an image and it's just art and it has no utility beyond that. I'm calling it digital art and it's an NFT. Now, people are buying this right now and they're valuing that experience. A lot of times it's associated back to the brand, like whoever is producing it. But the next phase of that is, let's say that the face of this NFT is now a card, a digital card, like a game card that you can play in an application, let's say like Gods Unchained. The game characters, Neon District game characters, consist of 6 non-fungible tokens. It's the character body, the equipment you put on the arms, the equipment you put on the legs, the core, the helmet, and then a piece of like a weapon of some sort. The type of weapon ranges in the cyberpunk genre. But then you basically fuse these NFTs together and create this character. And all of these pieces individually can level and craft and be specialized on their own, independent of each other. So when you put them all together, it's like putting a pack of like a card deck together that takes on all those qualities. So if you've ever played an RPG where you specialize, you have a specialization tree. So it has all of those features. And then you unlock new features as you play the game. If you're going to have an open economy of any kind, you have to design in a really wide space so power can be distributed. You can have levels of power, but to a point. And the more specific an asset gets, think of Magic the Gathering. When you play a card at the perfect time and then you have it in your deck and you know that this is the right move. It's similar. So this RPG basically has the game engine backbone of something like Magic the Gathering, but it plays like something like Final Fantasy.
Cool. And so is it live right now?
The game design and all those pieces are done, and the thing that's difficult about Neon District is there are thousands of art assets, right? When I'm describing what those characters are like. So we had to put them together in a way that they would render properly every time, no matter if you switched the pants out for one of the other hundreds of pants that we have, and that the animations will properly render in game. So we've completed that process. So currently what you can do is you can go to portal.neondistrict.io. We just rolled this out yesterday. For the first time ever, you can basically fuse your character together. And by mid-October, you're going to be able to take it as like one NFT token. You'll be able to take it to OpenSea. Like I said, we're like really trying to leverage what is possible with NFTs. And the problem actually took us a little longer to ship than what we realized, because of course, when we were bright-eyed and bushy-tailed back in 2017, when we had all these ideas, the actual infrastructure it took to build the middleware between the blockchain and the gaming application, there was a lot of work that had to be done. Now that we have all the tools, we've built the infrastructure, we have all the game assets, content, the art, we're rolling out an iteration from here, the game, essentially. So if you're a Neon District God Key holder or a trophy holder, which is some of our longer standing community, then by November, you're gonna be playing the private alpha access of the game. And then the public beta rolls out December 15th.
Cool, so not too long to wait.
I guess like something I wanna say is COIN is not just tied to Neon District, right? It's a big flagship title that Blockade Games, my game company, is working on. So COIN goes beyond that as far as what are all the other crazy things that we can do with NFTs and DeFi. So for example, let's say you're taking COIN and you set up, you're gonna be a liquidity provider and you have a token and you stake it in one of our farms, in this NFT farm. Then you can be farming NFTs, one, similar to meme, but something else you can be doing that I am really excited about is this idea of farming shards. So an NFT can basically be fractionalized into ERC20 tokens. These ERC20 tokens represent fractional ownership of the asset. So if I put together a really cool collection of art of, let's say it's all cyberpunk or sci-fi and glitch themed art that I worked out to get, let's say I have a few hundred of these NFTs in a vault, and everyone staking can be yield farming these shards at random. You can use Chainlink on-chain randomization so that you're getting all these different shards. And then let's say there's a gallery of all these different artworks, and you can see what percentage of all of them have been mined so far. Let's say one gets totally mined. Then it unlocks, basically, and now if you've heard of Shotgun, like the Shotgun smart contract that Niftex Exchange has with NFTs, what happens is now somebody can put in a bid and for Ethereum for that entire whole NFT. If in a 2-week timeline, no one accepts that bid or no one counters the bid, then that Ethereum automatically is paid out. So that Ethereum's locked. It's out of the hands of the person that made the bid. It's being held in escrow. Then it gets paid out to all the shard owners, and that NFT is transferred automatically to the person that made the bid. What I've seen that people really like about this experience is the fact that when you can do the counter bid, you'll see things like we've seen Axie Infinity have some assets that started out in this process at being 40 ETH, and then the winning bid ended up being 140 for that Axie.
So could you play the game without the 6 NFTs that make up the character and all the equipment? Will that be a bonus, or because it seems like it could get quite expensive?
It's on layer 2, right? So actually we're on the Matic network, which is a layer 2 of Ethereum. So it's very cheap to play. And actually we cover the back-end expenses for all of those things. So it is a free-to-play game. As all free-to-play game models, there's in-game purchases that are just like Fortnite. Like you can buy things if you want to, but they're for aesthetics, they're for prestige, and also the assets, just like in Fortnite as well, we'll have seasons. So we'll have additions of basically what the different pieces look like. The aesthetics will change over different seasons. We'll come out with new, basically like fashion lines every season. We do start the game currently with a character and some gear. And it will be, when we actually roll it out in December, you will be able to onboard and play in a free-to-play manner by accumulating gear pieces and being able to craft. It'll just be a little bit slower. The grind will be a little bit longer. So you can speed that experience up with cash. The whole point is to get NFTs into as many people's hands as possible to drive adoption. And also you want your friends to come and play. So we roll out first as PvP. We had a tech demo of this whole entire process called Plasma Bears that rolled out you can still see it today at plasmabears.com. But it went live January 2019, and it's the free-to-play model. It's crafting 5 NFTs together that are upgradable. You can swap them in and out, and then you play and they upgrade over time. You get new bear pieces and you collect them. What we found with this whole process is it completely eliminated the fact that you don't have to sync a blockchain wallet. There's a custodial onboarding experience, so you don't have to know anything about crypto. And we had people playing Plasma, so both the same with Plasma Bears and Neon District. And that's same right now actually with Neon District with the crafting. You can buy everything with your credit card. But anyways, with Plasma Bears, we had children and we had grandparents playing this, people that had never been able to interact with crypto before in a meaningful way.
As an investor or someone who's been in crypto for a while, many people are here for the money, and so they might find this very exciting, but one of the things they're going to ask is the price of the token correlated loosely or strongly to how many people play the game? Will there be any burn mechanisms, or will the demand for the token increase as more people play the game?
So coin is not an in-game currency. Okay. For example, for Neon District. Neon District has an in-game currency that's non-transferable called Neon, which can be bought with the credit card, with Ethereum, and also soon we'll be rolling out with coin. So coin, yes, you're going to be sending it to us. It won't be burning it, but we'll be putting it back into the economy for coin on our side. So into community rewards and incentives and also development. But those also go into farming incentives. So I guess coin's ecosystem is much, and that's why I was saying it's much bigger than the Neon District. Neon District is a opportunity to showcase what is possible today with blockchain technology and where we're going to be taking NFTs. And Blockade's vision is to be basically the first one to do this in a big way, to get NFTs as many people's hands as possible and get them playing. So playing there, and also our community has been long-standing since, with my whole puzzle background. We have in our Discord about 6,000 people, and a lot of them gamers, a lot of them puzzle solvers. Many of them actually are creators themselves. So Coin's whole initiative was to basically empower the community in a way and incentivize them in a way where they're building puzzles and experiences now, and they're not just necessarily doing it for free. So we can offer bounties. We're rolling out it's like a Gitcoin grant proposal system that we're forking from Gitcoin and designing it in a way for developers. We're doing something a little similar with puzzle development, but we're essentially going to be creating a development force out of our community to be building for the different experiences. Since the main argument is right now that NFTs need more experiences to be valuable.
I'm actually curious, you're probably the first legit real game to integrate crypto assets, I'm assuming, or NFTs to this point, because there's been a few, but usually it's very basic, right? You spin a wheel or something, but you're going to have a real world, right?
Engine has a bunch of games. We have a buddy who's got a game called Age of Rust, which is a pretty fancy 3D game. The difference is they're not using what's possible with NFTs or with tokens in the way that I'm describing of those experiences. The focus is really different, way more commercial, less personalized. So we're really focusing on the user's personal experience and how to curate that, as opposed to, for example, doing these giant asset sales for powerful items. Just buying a powerful item, even let's say it's for a card game, when you're playing against someone else and they just play that against you, and the only way they got it was that they bought it, that really takes a lot of the fun out of the game. And new people aren't going to want to onboard if it's not honestly just a challenge of skill and merit. So I guess my argument is that there are other games that are working with blockchain assets, and a lot of them are actually only using them for cryptocurrency, like an in-game currency. And they're not even using NFTs as blockchain game assets. When we chose to do game assets as non-fungible tokens, the question is why are we using NFTs? And if you're going to use an NFT and do that to yourself as a developer, you really want to leverage it and make it worth everybody's while, your time and my time. So that's why everything has been designed very, very thoughtfully in that way.
Could you maybe go back and explain as simply as possible the relationship between CRED and COIN?
Right now, the only way to earn CRED is with liquidity mining for coin. So you're staking your liquidity provider token from providing liquidity to the coin and ETH pair that's on Uniswap. On our farming page, which is at coinartist.io, and it says in the sidebar like Calm Protocol. So you stake there, and then you're farming CRED, and you're actually getting coin as well. So you're getting 2 tokens, but you're getting less coin because coin is capped. It's 3.74 million token. That's it. It's like the premium of our ecosystem ever. But with CRED is uncapped, and CRED is designed in a way where it's basically given as rewards for whenever you provide value to coin. So by obviously being a liquidity provider, then you're going to be earning CRED because that's valuable for our ecosystem. And CRED you can take on the District, you will have the ability to buy special NFTs that are not available by any other means, that are only for CRED holders. You'll be able to have other in-game perks and like boosts or different abilities that you might not have if you didn't have CRED. With CRED is also the access to special. We'll roll out in-game missions in January. So we roll out with PvP in December, but from there we expand the actual campaign and gameplay. So if you're a CRED holder, you're going to have access to these missions like runs, things like that in game. And whenever you use CRED, it's burned. So even though it's an infinite supply, the distribution and how you get it is still pretty limited, and then it's also burned. Oh, and that's the other thing is with CRED is we're going to be providing NFT pools or NFT farms, so you can stake CRED to yield farm cool exclusive NFTs, either it be Neon District NFTs or other game companies. When I strike deals and pull in some valuable NFTs that way, we'll do that with CRED as well. But coin right now, it's 70% of people providing liquidity are staked.
All right, so that helps the price a lot. That means people are quite confident in the ecosystem, right? Because they can't sell right away. They need to do true transactions, which isn't too bad, but it means they're bullish on the future, I guess.
And I think people want to participate in the playfulness of everything we're doing and just be a part of it. We are designing something that hasn't really been done before, and we're not paywalling it. A lot of games, blockchain games, are paywalled. So you have to buy the assets before you can even play the game, which as a gamer is confusing because you don't know what is valuable, that you don't know what you need or what the gameplay is going to be like. I think this whole funnel of being able to onboard people and being open and inclusive, it's just been pretty well received.
Sure. And since we're talking about a community, are you thinking about having a DAO?
Yes. So we're looking at a few different options for a DAO right now. We're using Snapshot for polling the community. If you've heard of Snapshot, it doesn't use gas. It does a snapshot of what's in your wallet and allows you to vote. But yes, we're going to be doing a DAO. We'll need the DAO for things like the community puzzle designers, and then as well for the game development with the Gitcoin.
I think we covered the differences between CRED and COIN, and that CRED is unlimited but will be burnt, and that you'll get special missions and perks with CRED. Do you think you'll be releasing more games maybe? Or will you just focus on this one for now?
Well, this one, because it's huge, the game universe is huge for this one, and the potential. So we can do land sales next year with Neon District, and you can have apartments. We have something called the Hideout, where you can have a virtual space where you can stash all your stuff and show it virtually, as if we were to do our own marketplace as well in game, so people can trade basically for free peer-to-peer without having to go to Ethereum. There's a whole bunch of potential there with this game. Since we worked so hard to make the platform and the art with the cyberpunk aesthetics, it's really well received. So I think that if we can do it, looks like we can, that building out this IP essentially, even if we make like where we are with art right now, and we decide to launch a 3D game at some point in the future, we could then, with all the tokens, basically just make 3D models of all the existing assets and launch a 3D world, and then from there scale. So currently doing 2D makes more sense because the speed in which we can create new content is much faster than 3D models and textures. So that allows for us to have more diverse assets. And also third-party content creation. So we can have guest artists come and do a whole series, let's say, of like painted of these assets we painted according to this artist style. And maybe we sell a limited edition of 10 of them, and we only sell them for coin, for example. And that artist gets a certain percentage of that pay. We can do that in a way that is like it's already ready to go, essentially. Yeah, the cyberpunk future and that brand and that IP, I think there's so much potential. The games that will happen will be supporting games. You could do, for example, a social game with your characters, your Neon District characters. You can make a funny spin-off of trying to date non-playable characters that you meet in a bar that's one of these cyberpunk bars. And let's say it's a social game where you have to try to convince this character to say yes. And then they do, and then that NPC joins your group. There's just a lot of fun things to experiment with because these assets, the game assets, can be used in all kinds of different spaces. So now it's just now that the work is done, as far as everything working on web, animations are done, you can make them really interactive experiences.
So quickly on the team side and the financial side, how did you create the project? How did you raise funds? Was there an ICO? Tell us a bit about how you created the team, who's on the team to help you.
Yeah, so we did, when we initially launched the game company, we had a seed round, and we raised about $1 million from a few, like 5 different investors. And then we raised some money, like about $2 million after that, like a post-seed. That money was what got us to basically this point. Matic came on when we switched from Loom, and then they did some mile-based funding. So as we hit the different shipment dates, they give us an allocation of money to take us to the next milestone. That in the game is right now pulling in some revenue. So like, for example, this week, well, actually just in the past few days, we made $11,000 on a game that, it's still pretty bare bones, and just the fact that it's just crafting at the moment. That, and then COIN actually has provided the ability, if we wanted to pull funds from COIN for development purposes, we have it. That's currently not the case right now. Yeah, and that's how we funded it so far. We have about 5 core team members at the moment, but then we have up to 20 people for contract work as needed. While they're not on payroll, they're just people that we'll reach out to if we have a certain specific job that needs to get done. Chris Chapman, who's our executive producer, he was in charge of the MMO platform at Disney for about 10 years. So he really understands that space. Our lead game designer was actually, he's currently working with us. He's now a game designer at Riot Games. Ben Heidorn, who's the CTO, he found him because he was solving some of my puzzles, and he was so good at it. I pulled him into a different project. At the time, he was getting his PhD in computer science and security. He's been awesome. So we've been a really strong team, made it through the bear market. I'm really proud of us, like, being able to push through. And what I'm excited is everyone's just catching on the fact that NFTs are a thing. And we are positioned with this, like, war chest of content that we've produced, like incredible animations and art and NFTs and everything to really drive the narrative that game assets can be, like, compete with fine art. And you can do that once you have established provenance and prestige of the art. And so if you are making basically digital fine art, and now it has those other characteristics too, there's no reason it cannot compete in the fine art world. So my argument there is to one day, hopefully very in the near future, get the art world to accept that narrative. And I think it's possible. And by doing that as an artist, historically, I will feel very successful in that, because it's always been very frustrating that things like Final Fantasy, these other games, the art is never actually recognized as fine art. It's like cheaper in some sort of way. It's not deemed as valuable.
What do you think is missing from people's mind that maybe will slowly come for them to really go to the next level? Right now, I think most people are still discovering NFTs, and they're taking an interest because they understand that the hype is coming. But if we want these to be long term, there needs to be like real infrastructure and real value to it. So how do we move from the initial hype early stage to something more long term?
what we see right now is people FOMOing. They're FOMOing over ideas, but a lot of them don't grasp that the actual like non-fungible tokens as a smart contract have so much capability and flexibility in what they can do. So when I'm talking about like the upgradability, the fact you have metadata attached to them, just for context, the reason why I used to do Bitcoin puzzles and play with Bitcoin and I didn't want to make a Bitcoin game was because of the fact that Bitcoin, while it does have smart contracts, they're rigid and they don't really have them either. You don't have these tokens that carry are associated with metadata that have a unique token ID. So that unique identifier is something that is so important, and it's what makes a non-fungible a non-fungible, that plus the smart contract. So those two things together, like, completely just changes the game about what someone like me, a game developer, can do with the asset. Whereas Bitcoin, they're fungible. You can't distinguish them. And so since you can't distinguish them, you're really limited in the sort of experience you can give to a gamer or a user. And this is an argument that we're having a lot in this space right now, because people are saying, well, I could just screen grab this picture of this, NFT token. And isn't that the same thing? And the reality is no, because as developers, we're reading the token. We're reading the token, and in that game, we recognize what that token is, where it's, we're using the API calls and confirming and verifying that's the actual original asset, and it's going to display in a unique way in our game. But we can do this with any NFT. It doesn't have to be our NFT. So if we collaborate with someone, let's say my buddy who has the game Age of Rust, he has one of his game assets, and maybe we support it also in our game. We're not using his art files. We're using our Neon District art files associated with his token. But the token information and the metadata and everything associated with it will give this character certain traits and attributes in our game. And they don't even have to be the same ones. We as game developers recognize the ones we want to give it. The design is curated basically by these application developers. And that's where you're going to see the experiences and the value really come in with NFTs. I do see the limitations on the NFTs as tokens with the art all by themselves. But the point is that everybody, the community developers, are going to be taking these assets. We're going to be building experiences with them. And you can't do that with literally anything else in the space. So these are basically the toys of the growing Ethereum community.
I would be very curious to finish this interview by knowing more about your day. I see you tweeting all the time on Twitter. I'm assuming you have lots of responsibilities these days. How do you cope with all that?
Yeah, I get up really early. I believe in mental health and staying healthy overall. But I keep a few people really close to me, that like somebody that's in the DeFi space that has a real pulse on what's going on in DeFi. And somebody like my CTO, who's very much staying involved in what's going on with the latest Ethereum developments, layer 2, smart contracts, all of that work. And then I do my best to pay attention to what's the current sentiment. What are people talking about? What are they confused about across the ecosystem? What are people excited about? What are they looking for? And making sure I'm staying engaged and I'm aware of those conversations, because I feel like they are very informative about where this space is headed and what the user wants. My job is to make sure that whatever our community thinks is the most fun right now, or the next innovative idea, we're just a little bit more ahead of it than the next developer. We're pulling it in and rolling it out faster than your average, developer in the community.
Do you have time to read?
Yeah, I read. So I used to, prior to all this, read some sci-fi books. I like to read books lately on philosophy and ways of thinking, abstract thinking. It depends, but I read a lot all the time, actually.
Would you have any books you recommend?
So I just started one that's called The Truth. It's basically an argument for having more deeper, more meaningful relationships, and coming from the guy that wrote the game. So it's supposed to be, he's the same author that wrote How to Make Love Like a Porn Star. So I'm really curious to read it. It's supposed to be pretty funny and deep. So
I'm assuming we're not going to be seeing very deep puzzles from you, because you'll have your hands busy building Neon. Is there anything else you'd like to say? Anything else we missed, maybe?
Oh, well, I was just going to, so actually Blockade does put on puzzles. So that puzzle designer I was talking about, we'll be shipping puzzles regularly. So, no, I think I'm good. It was nice to chat, and I hope I didn't take you down too many rabbit holes.
It was very fun. Thank you for your time, Margaret.
Thank you.